I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Welcome to today's episode. I have Kate Hay of the famous Instagram Quilt with Miss Kate. If you have not seen her reels and her posts on Instagram, I think you should go give her a follow. She is just real and raw on Instagram about quilting and sewing with what you have and sewing with what you love. And she's just bringing a level of authenticity to the quilty world that is just like, for me, I appreciate it so much. And she's just a fun, good time. And so I I mean, we cover everything from like obviously quilting to moving all over the place. She's lived a bunch of different places and just life in general. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Kate and let's get into it. Howdy, my friends. If you are new here, then you probably don't know that there is a Not Your Granny's Quilt Show Patreon. That's right, we have a Patreon. So if you love the show and you want to support, head on over to patreon.com/Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. In the paid tier, you will receive a Not Your Granny's Quilt Show sticker sent right to your door, as well as exclusive early access to the week's new episode. So head on over to patreon.com/Not Your Granny's Quilt Show and check it out. You guys, I am loving my merch. I just got recently the new t-shirt, the new hoodie, the new mug, and I'm just loving everything. I check to make sure that everything is super high quality, washable, wearable, and stays nice for longevity. So head on to the merch shop. It's nygqs.printify.me to check out what's available. That's nygqs.printify.me. The link is down below. And one last plug for heading over to Apple Podcasts to leave a 5-star review. When I hit 50 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, I'm going to do a huge merch giveaway. So head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review. And now on to the episode. Welcome to the show, Kate. I'm so excited to have you here today. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here. This is actually my first ever podcast. So I've anxious peed 18 times this morning.
Yeah, that's always me. I'm like, I'm nervous. I have to pee, even though I don't. It's fine.
Yeah. So that's my morning, but so excited to be here and get to talk to you about Quilt World.
Yes, my favorite thing. I'm so excited. Yay. Well, I have seen like a million of your Instagram reels and I just love you, but I want to go back for anybody who doesn't know like your story of quilting and how you got into it. So let's go there.
Yeah, it's a kind of weird story, but I guess everyone's villain origin story of Quilt World is a weird one. So I was homeschooled. And so my mom was like, we're gonna learn everything about everything. And so when I was
Oh,
12, one of the learn everything about everything classes was a quilt class. And so she and I took it together. So we are first generation quilters. And people ask all the time, like, did your mom teach you? Because my mom has a large quilt store. And I'm like, nah, girl. She used to being like, I don't know what a 1/4 inch seam is either. I'm not either. And so they had these big books, like coffee table books of quilts. And they were just like, pick one, whatever your heart desires. And
what?
as a 12-year-old, what my heart desired was a twin size Dresden plate quilt
Yeah,
using feed sack reproduction fabrics on an unbleached muslin.
sure.
That was what my 12-year-old self was like, oh, peak. And so I did that. And what's crazy about all of that is my teacher had me draw out the blades on cardboard and then
Oh,
use that as a template and then draw around it with a pencil and then cut it out with scissors.
mm,
I did because I didn't know better. And that's
right.
what they told me to do. And so I did it. And then, so I've cut all these pieces out with cardboard and scissors. And then I hand pieced it all using silk thread.
Whoa.
And so a twin size, and
Okay.
that was my first ever quilt.
Yeah.
And then we hand quilted it.
So
What?
everything by hand. You're just like,
Everything by hand, except for the sashing. She let us put sashing on with a machine. I don't know
oh,
where that came from,
wow.
but yeah, no. So it was all done by hand as a actual child. And I actually think that's the thing about beginners. They're fearless because
Yeah.
they don't know any better, which is wonderful. Because
Hmm.
now I think if somebody was like, Kate, do you want to do this project, this exact same project you did when you were 12? I'd be like, that sounds hard. But
You're
as a
like, no,
12-year-old,
thank
I
you.
was like, it speaks to my soul. I can do it. I did. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Right. Oh
So,
my gosh.
so that was my first ever quilt ever. And then, my mom for like, I think 2 years would take just like, your regular ruler and on anything that was like a longer seam, she would literally draw in pencil the 1/4 inch seam line and just be like, just sew on that line. And so
Oh,
I just sewed on that line and she just drew on every single, and if I messed up, which I did, right?
sure.
She would have me unpick it and then sew another line and be like, okay, it's fine, try it again. And
Yeah.
so I learned a 1/4 inch seam.
Wow.
So, so that was all 22 years ago now. So I've been in quilt world for 22 years this year, which is insane.
Wow.
And so quilted, and then my first job ever was at a quilt store where I'm pretty sure they just hazed me because all I did was fold fat quarters for like 8 months,
Ugh.
which I didn't mind at the time. Actually, I still love folding fat quarters, but
Mm.
that's like definitely my actual job for years. And then I said, I'm never going to work in a quilt store again. And then my mom became a manager of a quilt store. And I was like, okay, one exception. And her, and I was like, this is great. Then I went to college, did my degrees, got fancy jobs, moved across the world multiple times. And then my mom bought Patchwork Plus, which is in Dayton, Virginia. Shout out, Mama. And it's the largest quilt store in Virginia. And I was living in the Bahamas at the time. And she was like, will you move home and manage the shop? And I was like, absolutely. If and only if I get cold or bored, I can move back to the Bahamas until I feel the need to work again. And she was
Yeah.
like, deal. So I did that for 5 years on and off. I was
Wow.
back between quilt store Bahamas, quilt store Bahamas. And then I moved back full time for a few years to manage. And then I was just like, man, I want to get back out and see the world. And I had some friends over at Moda and I called them and I was like, hey, if you guys ever need anyone to like sweep the floor or, take out the trash or anything, I'm just looking for a change. And they called me back and were like, actually, would you want to be a rep? And I was like, absolutely, yes.
You're like,
So
pinch me. Hold on.
I
Pinch
know,
me.
like that. And so I repped for Moda and Ruby Star Society all throughout the Southeast. So I did that kind of the whole pandemic when everything was still closed, as far as like you couldn't go to restaurants, or if you had to pee, there was no rest stops. I mean, it was an adventure, shall we say.
Wow.
But I loved being in and out of fabric stores all day. I got to see how they run fabric stores differently.
Mhm.
Um, Loved all that. And then I met the great love of my life, and we moved out here to Maui. And so it was the first time in like my adulthood that I was not like quilty in the quilt world as a job.
Mm.
And out here, it's obviously a lot of Hawaiian quilting, which is so incredibly gorgeous and steeped in culture and meaning, and like it really truly is sacred
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. And I have ADHD, so I
Yeah.
can't do the same project for months, years. I'm not set up for it. And so
Yeah.
I was like, where are my people? And I couldn't find them. I couldn't find my people. And I was so used to having quilters. And so I was like, well, they're on the internet. So
Mm.
now I must learn to internet.
Yeah.
So I have been trying to internet ever since so that I could find my quilt besties. Because I was
Yeah.
used to having them kind of provided. And so
Yeah.
never had to search for them before. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think you're doing a great job. I was also homeschooled through
Woo.
I was like second grade to like through sixth grade. I went to a private school in seventh grade, and then I was homeschooled again for eighth grade. And then my mom got pregnant with my baby sister, and she was like, okay, I'm done. Like, you all have to leave the house. And so my one brother and I were just a year apart. And so she sent us to public, like middle school,
Mhm.
to get us out of her hair because she still had our younger brother at home and then my baby sister. We were all homeschooled for a certain length of time. Like my youngest brother is the only one who stayed homeschooled the whole time. The rest of us went to public high school. But yeah, so I feel that homeschool life. So yeah,
Yeah.
we did like art classes at the library and just like different things. But I wish quilting was like one of them. But my mom's been sewing forever too. So it's like sewing's always been around, but it wasn't ever quilting until I was like 30.
And then you were like, wait a minute.
Well,
Let me
my
practice.
friends forced me. My
Oh,
mom,
what friends. I
I
love that for you.
I know. I know it really is like the best thing that ever happened because now it's like my entire existence is quilting. So I
It's
definitely,
a wonderful world. Like
yeah,
quilt world is a wonderful world to like be just like dedicated to.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So it's really exciting. But so I want to go back to how you ended up in the Bahamas. Were you just like chilling out there? Were you working? Like,
So I did school and I did worky things and I was living in the UK for a while and I got very cold and
mm,
rains all the time and it was just very gray and I love the UK, but I just got like, oh, this is gray and drizzly. And I called my mom and was like, Mom, it's just kind of like looks like Eeyore outside every day.
yeah.
And it's like, well, I saw a job and posting in the Bahamas. You should sign up. And I was like, okay. And so it was a internship at a mission site. So they like youth groups would come down and like work on houses and that kind of a thing. And so I signed up to be their hospitality intern. And so it was supposed to be like a one summer thing. And then over the years I got promoted to like head of interns and then head of volunteers. And then when they asked me to be the director, I was like, I'm out. I don't want to do that.
That's
I'm
too much
super
responsibility.
yeah. I'm like, oh no. That's and they're like, then fundraising. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk to people about money. That sounds scary. And
Yeah.
so I packed up my little dog who I found in a trash pit there and brought him home with some papers I kind of faked. And so if you government, I definitely didn't say that. They were definitely real papers
For
for
sure.
sure.
Super
And
official.
moved back to the States and started working at Mom's full time. So
Yeah. That's
yes.
wild. I just think like because I've literally lived in Boise. I always say my entire life. I went to school in Montana for like 3 semesters, but then came right back. So like anybody who has like moved all over the place and like taken that risk is always just like so intriguing to me because I've not really I've not really taken that risk or taken that chance. And so it's just fun to like learn about why people move and when they move and like what took you there, what took you there. And so
At one time, so it's my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. And at one time, all four of us were living in different time zones for a summer. And so my brother was living in the Philippines. My mom was living in the States. My dad was living in Israel. And I think I was living in the UK at that time. But so like family get-togethers via Zoom was like impossible because none of us lived
yeah.
even kind of in the same
Yeah.
anything. And so
Yeah.
my parents were thrilled. My brother now lives in Austin, Texas. I live here in Maui, and they
Mhm.
just think that's the best ever because we all live in the same country. And so like, isn't this great having the family all together? And so yeah.
Or at
So
least close by. ish enough to
Yeah, this is the
make
closest
contact.
we've all been in like 10 years. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's
So,
so interesting. Yeah, it's so funny because like my husband, he grew up moving all over the place. His parents were military and then he went into the Air Force. And so he's literally like his whole childhood through his like mid 20s was just moving everywhere all the time. And then when he moved to Boise, like he's just been here for over 20 years and he's just like, hmm. Like it's okay. We can move soon. We're, you know, considering options for moving somewhere, maybe in Europe, in
ooh,
the near future.
yeah. Do you
Yeah.
know where you would want to be? I mean, I'm not saying nail it down right now.
No, yeah. No, we've kind of thrown some ideas around. I visited Spain in high school and then we went in 22 in the summer of 22 because that was our 10th anniversary and he had never been to Spain.
Mhm.
And I was like, we're going. And he was like, great, we're doing it. So we spent 2 weeks in Barcelona and it was fantastic. And I still was like, yep, nope, this place is magic. And it's funny because he has like, I mean, it's like far down the bloodline, but he's got Spanish ancestry, like his dad on his dad's side. And so he literally was like getting mistaken for a Spanish person when we were there. And I just thought it was so fucking hilarious because he doesn't really like, we're both learning more Spanish. Like I took it in high school, whatever, but we're like using Duolingo
Everyone
daily.
on
Like,
Duolingo, I'm on too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to become friends.
yeah, yeah. Um, but like his Spanish is pretty rudimentary for, and people were just like other American tourists would like kind of stumble with their Spanish. She's like, "You're good," and they were like, "Oh God, you're American!" Like you could see the relief in their face. I was like, "You're passing. This is so fun."
Let's do more of this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, but we've tossed around England just like to kind of get our bearings as far as like living over
Mhm.
there
Mhm.
and getting used to like just a different lifestyle, but not having the language barrier.
Right.
which but I'm never gonna give up my dream of living in Spain. So I don't know. We're just tossing around ideas at the moment and like his boys are both out of the house, so like we're empty nesters. I was like, I did it before 40, guys.
Yeah. Killing it. So, yes.
I
Oh,
didn't have to
oh,
give birth and I'm an empty nester before I'm 40. So I feel like I won the lottery.
yes, you did.
Yeah. So
Really?
anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I really want you to do that so that I can come visit. And
Yeah.
so I fully support this dream. You're gonna
Okay,
do
great. I
great.
love
Yeah.
it. Yes. And we do want to get a place that has like room for guests and that we could, if we are on travels, can like, Airbnb
Mhm.
or Verbo or whatever works over there. I know Airbnb does, but anyway. So yeah, just like we have these lofty goals, but it's just up in the air right now. So anyway,
They're not lofty goals, they're just goals. They're
they're just
achievable.
goals. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are achievable. They really are. I shouldn't call them lofty. You're right, because
they're
it
not
is
lofty.
something I want to do and it's not out of my reach. Like I could definitely do it. I could do it today if I really wanted to.
Yeah. Like
I don't
quilt,
want to yet, but
those are your people.
yeah.
And Spain, that is your dream that you're gonna make into reality. So no, no loftiness, just
Yeah.
things happening, but just not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Um, and then how did you end up in Maui? Just for funsies or?
So my fiance's job brought us out here. He is a creative director for a company that's based out of here. And
Okay.
so yeah, so we just packed everything in a couple suitcases in a pallet and sent it out here. And so I sew on a Bernina 3 series out here. I have a 7 series back on the East Coast. That I just missed that throat space. But
Hmm.
and then I just packed I want to say it may have just been 1 box of fabric. It may be 2. And I was like, well, that'll be that. And then these 2 quilts. That's it. That's all the quilty stuff I have out here.
Wow.
So yeah. And so it was hard because I went from, again, quilting's been my life for so long. And I had access to literally hundreds of shops that I saw multiple times a year. And then before we moved out here, my fiance had a house and I had a house and I had a sewing room in both. And so I
Ooh.
went from, having the big fancy sewing rooms to being back to sewing on the kitchen table. Um,
Yeah.
and so very humbling, because, on social, I feel like everyone who's, I don't know, quote unquote, like the popular girls are their sewing rooms came out at HGTV. It's,
Right.
oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And like, you want to
Yeah.
talk about lofty goals? I felt like some of those rooms, I was like, whoa, whoa, who am I to be on the internet if these goddesses exist? Like,
Right. I know.
I have no skin in this game. I cannot. There's no space.
Yeah.
But when I got out here in my teensy tiny house with my little machine and in the middle of my kitchen and no fabric, and
Hmm.
I was like super intimidated to go on the internet. But I knew I had to if I wanted friends that were.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I wasn't going to try to live up to them or what my brain had told me was the only way to interact in the quote world. And I was just going to show real life, for
Yeah.
better, for worse, and just be like, oh, well, this is my reality. And if you identify at all, can we please be friends? Because I would like to. And
Yeah.
yeah, full
Yeah.
circle, full circle.
I love it. Well, and I think too, like there can be like an intimidating factor when it comes to like the quilty world. Cause like you said, it's like these curated, beautiful spaces that we see. And I love when people show their realness. Like I understand there needs to be like a level of professionalism from businesses. And it's like, yes, I totally 100% get that. But when they're like, turn around, turn their camera around and see what's behind them. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. It's not just me that shoves everything in the corner really fast, like, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but also just the realness of like nothing ever goes smoothly. And like, yeah, I don't know. I just think the more realistic we can kind of come at our presence online, the more connections we can make. Because that authenticity is more important to me anyway than like seeing someone's fake existence. Like I don't want to only see perfect things. Like I want to see the beauty in the imperfections and like see where I fit into all of that because I'm not perfect. Like I'm a total disaster. But like if everything I see is only like perfectly curated and like all your Instagram tiles are all like super aesthetic and matchy and beautiful, like super good work, good for you.
Oh, for sure.
But
Like
like I
you
can't identify with that.
No, 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 no. It's very much one of those, like, I love that for you. You are killing your game. I'm
Hmm.
so proud of you. I'm definitely cheering you on. I cannot do that.
Yeah.
And that says nothing about you. It
Right.
just says, I cannot do that. And so I
Mhm.
will be a failure to myself if I try to pretend to be you.
Right.
And so, like,
Yep.
girl, you're killing it. I want you to be you. And if you is
Mhm.
super organized, like, yeah. And if
Yeah.
you is super, like, you threw your scraps on the floor for the last 3 months and there's a like scrap monster that could kill us all, girl, you do you. I love it. I don't care what the tiles look like, as long as they look like you, I'm in.
Mhm.
I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. I just love to see it and it's so fun. Is there like I don't know. I think um I get like brain blocked when I'm like, okay, what can I make for content? Like, what can I put out there? And I just like freeze up and I just don't end up making any content really because I just literally, one, I feel like I'm just copying other people. And
Mhm.
two, I don't really know I mean, I can do basic stuff. It's fine. Like, I know it doesn't have to be super fancy, but I guess like, do you find inspiration from other people or are you just like, super cool and smart and have tons of cool ideas and they just flow? Or are you just like, I don't know, like you just have so much good content and I like get sucked into every little
You.
reel and video you make and it's all so fun and yeah, like how do you come up with your ideas?
You're just so sweet. I love you. So I do I get inspired by other people? Yeah, of course, right? Because
Hmm.
like as a creative, looking at other people being creative, you're like, ooh, that's cool.
Hmm.
Or sometimes you're like, ooh, that's not what I would do. What would I do?
Hmm.
Okay, let's do this. And also, again, for me, social, because I don't have a business, right?
Hmm.
Like I don't know. I don't have anything to sell you, except for friendship that I like, this is fully who I am. Like, do you want to be friends? Like, it really does keep going back to me. It's like, do you want to be friends? Do you want to be friends? Please
Hmm.
let's be friends. And so I just keep like a note, like I have it right here. Um, Anytime I have an idea, I just like write things down. Because it won't stay in there. And
Yeah.
I don't always like drop everything to go film anything. And most of my stuff is one take or two, because I also, again, ADHD, so I just get bored.
Hmm.
um so none of my stuff will ever look perfect unless my fiance did it, because I just am like, well, on to the next thing. And I think that's the big thing about content too, is that we want it to look perfect, or
Hmm.
we want it to look mostly perfect, or like, man, what should we, or we don't want to look dumb.
Right.
So even if we don't want it to look perfect, we don't want it to look dumb. Uh,
Hmm.
and if you take that away, and if
Yeah.
you're, oh, I'll call myself a swamp troll on the internet for sure. Um, and you just take the ego out of it,
Yeah.
and um, it lets you do kind of just whatever happens rather than having to think too much about it.
Yeah.
Because again, I guess have no shame.
I'm here for it. I think shame is the thing that like kills creativity, it kills curiosity, and
Yeah,
it happens too often to people way too young. And I think that shame monster that lives in our heads and our bodies is so strong sometimes. And so
yeah,
I think there's like because I'm super mentally healthy and everything. There's like a twinge of jealousy sometimes when I see
yeah.
other people doing something that I wish I was came easier to me or that I wasn't as fearful of doing. And so I think at first I was kind of like, who is this girl? And then like the more I watched your stuff and the more I kept seeing you pop up, I was like, okay, actually I really fucking love her. So
Oh, yeah. And I think that I was reading actually my devotional the other day about how God really does create us to be so perfectly and wonderfully unique. And then society, culture, whatever you want to call anything,
mhm,
um, is like, you know what though, to be liked or to be accepted or to be a cool quilty girl or whatever lie we've been told, you have to do it this way. You have to do it
mhm,
this, have to do it this way. And I was reading that devotion, I was just like, well, if I'm created to be very perfectly Kate, and you're created to be very perfectly Amanda,
mhm,
then I'm doing a disservice to God, to myself, to the world, to try to be you, or
mhm.
for you to try to be me. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not trying to like be like, thanks God for everything you gave me, but I really hated what you did. Like, can I
right.
have it? And so the more I lean into being like glitter and disco balls and like not great at much, but kind of funny, the more I'm like, oh, I'm finding my people,
Mhm.
finding my quote besties. And you know what? Not everyone's gonna like me, because not everyone's gonna like anybody.
Right.
Super, super cool. Because if someone, I don't know, at least they're choosing not to like me for who I am, than choosing not to like a facade that I've put up. And
Mhm.
so I'm I'm totally cool with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just think the more you, whoever you are, like I always forget, I'm looking at my like reels for the future.
Mhm.
Forget to clean my machine.
Mm.
You know, I've been in this for 22 years, and unless it's like gunked up, basically, girlfriend's not gonna do shit about it. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like, just like a reminder, like clean your machine. Do you know why I made that reel? Because I didn't clean my machine. And
Right.
so Or I really love the strawberry blocks that are going on.
They're
And
so cute.
they're so cute. And so I'm gonna make a reel about it because they're so cute. And
Hmm.
so yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
I like it. I like it. And it's inspirational. And you're right. Like, whatever a person believes, like, we're all we're all unique and we all have our own personalities. And whatever you've been told or sold that you need to be different is a lie. It's wrong. And like, yeah, I think that's why the authenticity, I said that weird, authenticity is important, because if we don't show up in our true selves, and then other people can't see themselves in that either. And so, and I think if the strive for perfection really just holds us back and keeps us from realizing our true selves. And so I think in the quilty world especially, there's like so many trends and so many, you know, so many things you can get sucked into, which is great because there's stuff for everybody. And but it can be hard to feel like you need to be doing all of it all the time, or you're not gonna get enough follows, or you're not gonna find your people, or people aren't gonna like you because you didn't do XYZ. It's like, it's okay. Like, just like you said, it's like, do you like, and whatever that is, that's great. It's perfect. Like, don't change it.
Right. Well,
It's
I forgot who the quote's from. Um, but it's like you'll stop caring how much others or how often others think about you when you realize how infrequently they do. Like,
mhm,
so like, oh my gosh, are other people gonna like this? And girlfriend, you're probably gonna be the one that watches it the most. So
right?
do you like it? Okay, then like move along. I personally don't do commission quilts because I just refuse to make anything I don't like anymore. And
Mm,
I did it for so long that I only make things I like. And
yeah.
so it's just kind of that as a content. And not again, one of my girlfriends is trying to up her content game in real estate world. And
Mm,
she's like, I really look weird in this part of this video. And like, should I just delete it and start over? And I was like, nah, girl, post it. Because you look weird in part of a video. People are gonna see it one day, if they see it ever. And then
mhm,
it's gone into the internet forever. Like,
right.
if you look a little silly, no one cares.
Yeah,
Literally cares.
yeah,
So just post it anyway. If
yeah.
it's not perfect, no one cares. Post it anyway. And so
Mhm.
that's my biggest content advice. Post it anyway.
Yeah,
Like,
just post
just
it.
do it.
It's fine.
Just post it.
Yeah.
And then, some days you'll be like, man, I love that content. And other days you'll be like, hmm, that was awful.
You're like, "That's something." Yeah, no, I think it's true, and I mean, if I've learned nothing from this podcast, like, putting it out there, it is that, like, I am the person who looks at myself in these videos the most, because I'm editing and re-listening and listening again and making cuts and whatever, and 99% of the time I'm cutting myself out because I want my guest to be the feature, not me blabbing about something that everybody's heard 28 times. And I think it's funny too because at first when I first started, my husband was doing the editing for me, and he would always, like, he would just pause it to do something, and always my face was doing something crazy, and he would like snap a picture with his phone and send it to me,
Yeah,
and I was like, "Are you freaking serious? Like, knock it off." I'm like, "You
yeah.
always, like, pause my face on the stupid, like, expressions," and he's like, "No, you're so cute," and I'm like, "I hate it," and so now it's funny because, like, now I do all the editing, and, um, so if I pause myself on a goofy face, then I'll send him a picture because it's just, like, become a funny thing, and, like, and that's it. It's like, who's gonna pause me on that exact moment and that exact, because, like, it used to bother me, like, "Oh,
Mhm.
no, somebody's gonna see that," and it's really just because I was blinking and he just happened to pause it in the middle of my blink. I don't look like that normally, you know?
You can pause the Eras tours in the middle of Taylor Swift looking wonky.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like humans aren't like
right?
Yeah, and that's why honestly, if you look at my content, I always try to like that awkwardness is what I try to post on the front
Yeah.
because I'm like, well, that will make somebody else be like, well, at least I don't look like that. You know? And you're like, girl, we can look. I'm willing to look like this on the internet. I got you.
Yeah.
You look good beside me. I got you. So, yeah. Okay.
No, I like it. I love it. It's honestly, it's like it's such a good reminder. Like, right, like just show up. Like if you want to be seen, if you want to find friends, if you want, you know, if you think you have good ideas to share, like you have to just put it out there and hope for the best. And I think it is a battle I fight with myself a lot, but more often I'm like, yeah, I just do it. And like, who
Yeah.
cares what anybody says? I'm gonna like say this all the time to other people, but then when it comes to it, I start to second guess myself. But but then it's like, okay, no, if I just keep surrounding myself with more and more people who are showing up more authentically and more true to themselves, then like that encourages me, and I'm sure other people too, to do it too, because it's it can be hard to play that keeping up with the Joneses game of like,
Oh,
I
it's
need to have
exhausting.
a better stash. I need to have a better sewing room. I need to have a better this. It's like comparison game, and it will kill the joy of your life if you're not careful.
Well, and your friends, if they're your friends, they're not playing that game.
Mm-mm.
If they're playing that game, you probably don't want to be spending time with them. If someone
Yeah.
looks at my stash to determine if I'm a good friend for them, then
Hmm.
I'm not. I'm not a
Right.
good friend for you if that's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's your decision.
Hmm.
But yeah, no. And I listen to your podcast all morning. So I know you're a Brene Brown fan, like same thing.
Yes.
And like the wonder and the joy and the success and the beauty of Brene Brown is the vulnerability, is the messiness. I always say at my small group and kind of just to anyone, I only trust messy people. If
Hmm.
people are like, I have my whole act and life and house and kids and relationships and friendships and health and everything together, I'm like, oh, you're probably a serial killer. Like
Yeah.
something's wrong. Something's bad wrong. There's like 18 bodies in your backyard. Don't trust that. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
So if somebody's like, okay, I'm so sorry, I'm late. Also, spilled coffee on my shirt. Also, remember everything I said I was gonna get done this week? I got like 30% done. Da-da-da-da.
Hmm.
I'm like, I want to sit next to you.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
people I trust. And so then I just try to be that person.
Yeah.
So yeah, trying to make Brown proud over here.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna do it, Brene, I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same for
Oh
me.
man. That's so fun. Well, so you repped for Moda and Ruby Star and all that. So like, is that still, or I guess was it at the time like your favorite stuff to work with? And do you still like to work with it? Or yeah, like what kind of fabric draws your attention?
I love Ruby Star. That's this guy's all Ruby Star. This guy's all Tilda. I love Tilda. I love Anne Maria Horner. I love Heather Ross. I love the Heather Ross, Annabelle Wrigley, like mashup,
Mhm.
collab of solids. Um, those are the ones that super popped my brain, just like, but basically anything that is just like a shit ton of color, I'm in. But that being said, I also really love Primitive Gatherings by Moda, like from Moda, which is usually like her navy and white. I'm an East Coaster originally, and so navy and white of a repeating pattern that has 180 million billion little tiny pieces is
Mhm.
also my love language.
Yeah.
I'm either like, let's do brights and fast, or I'm like navy and cream and 800 plus pieces.
Yeah.
Two extremes, but yeah, so that's my two. What about you? What are your favorite designers? Or you can
Oh
just
man.
opt that out.
No, it's fine. I have so many too. I'm I love Ruby Star. I think my first kind of the designer that got me to even like start looking at quilting was Amy Butler.
Oh yeah.
So her big, fun, colorful florals, that was kind of the jam when I was getting into it. Or when my mom kind of started getting into it, 'cause she started quilting a little bit before I did. Um, yeah, so Amy Butler kind of drew me in, but then I found art gallery and um I love art gallery. And I've been a super fan of Caterina Rocella's designs for
Mhm.
as long as I've been in quilting, essentially. And this quilt on my wall is actually a test pattern I did for her Zeliga pattern. But it's a marine cracknel, her Gloria line of fabric. So I love marine cracknel. I love, yeah, I, it's hard to say. Yeah, I also love Heather Ross. My friend Jen is like a Heather Ross super fan. So if we ever find it, we're like, do you need this? She's like, no, I already have some in my stash. I'm like, of course you do.
Yeah.
Or she's like, actually, give me a half yard. Actually, get me a yard. We're like, okay. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
While you're
yeah,
there,
yeah,
maybe. Wow.
yeah. I do love Tula. I do have quite a bit of her. Yeah, I'm like you. I love bright, fun color, but I also like, I mean, I loved this Gloria line because it was such a hard lean into like that vintage kind of granny living room vibe. And yeah, I don't know. I think I'm a sucker for florals. Like rifle paper will sink me if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will never financially recover.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
hear you.
So all my quilts are just kind of a mishmash of like all those different designers, and I love it.
I have a confession. I have not yet made anything with anything by Art Gallery.
Ooh.
I know, and I love so much of their stuff. It's just,
Mhm.
again, I was the Moda Ruby Star rep, right? And
Yeah,
so that's what I did. And then
yeah.
when I moved here, I just brought so little and I haven't really bought since we've been out here.
Hmm.
I'm trying to go through the stash. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
so if anyone from Art Gallery is listening and wants to send me fabric,
Help
um,
a girl out.
yeah, yeah. So next time I'm on mainland, I'll have to
Yeah.
go shopping.
Yeah. It's honestly, and it feels because they do a different weave, like more of a, I don't know, more of
Like
like a,
your hand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it drapes
Right.
really nicely. And yeah, I love it. It's honestly, I've used it so much and it just comes out beautifully. Their solids are gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, everything we make is like gorgeous.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's on the agenda for,
yeah,
for the future.
yeah. And I like I had last year interviewed Ashlyn Downs, and she like just right after her episode came out, like a month or two later, like they announced the socialites for the year and she was in there and I was like, are you kidding me? So then it was like I made it my goal to talk to every socialite and I got
What?
everybody on except for Taylor of Toad and Sew. I haven't
Uh-huh.
had her on, but I got to everybody else and it's just like I don't know, they're all just so fun and all have such fun different personalities and like their style, their bundles are all so different and
Talented. They're so
yeah.
talented.
Oh,
I
yes.
love like stalking all of them.
Yeah.
So talented.
Yeah. It's so great. And it's like there's a pretty good size quilting community here in Boise. And I'm like, I'm in the Modern Guild. We have the Boise Basin Quilters Guild I'm in. And it's so fun, but it's like not a lot of people my age. So
Oh, gotcha.
like as much as I've learned and as much as I love being part of those groups, I'm like also like, well, but I also want other millennial women and
Hmm.
men, like and men because no exclusions here. But so like making online friends like you're experiencing is like one of the best ways to find more people who fit with my philosophy and my perspective on just life in general, but how quilting fits into all that and where I want to see the quilting world go, because I think there's still a lot of people holding on to the old ways with prejudice. Does that make sense?
Where do you
Like,
want quilting world to go? And you're like, world of worlds, where do you want quilting world to go?
I
That's
think,
strong feelings.
yeah, well, that's a little,
You don't
that's
have
a,
to post this. If
no,
you, okay,
no,
I was
it's good.
thinking,
I think it's a great question. And I have this conversation a lot. So I don't want to like come across as like a person who knows everything because I sure don't. But I
oh,
think for more like, and I've brought this up a couple times and I don't want to ever come across like I think anybody isn't worth or isn't worthy of being in the quilting space.
oh Lord, no.
But I
It's
think like,
mm-hmm.
yeah, but I just think like that old traditional like these, and quite frankly, like a lot of older people in the quilty world, they want everybody to do things the way that they do things. And if anybody tries to change that, it's just like not anything they're willing to accept. And it's, usually traditionally a very conservative space that pushes out any not like non-binary, any LGBTQIA, any like anything that is different is like not acceptable. And they treat people that way. And that bothers me so, so fucking much. Like,
As it should.
and so
It should. Yeah.
yeah, like World of Worlds, like if I could have my druthers, like I just want to see that like there's no space where no one is unwelcome. I want to see like, and I think this is something I touched on in a couple different episodes. I think Belle was one of them because we were talking about guilds, but just that like a lot of times guilds meet in churches and that's where they can the church kind of gets a foot in the door of like, hey, look, we're a church. You can come here and come to our church and like, and nothing against church. Well, I have a lot of things against church, but nothing against like faith and beliefs. I have my own and whatever, but like the using that as like a tool to get more congregation members sickens me because a lot of people who want to be in quilty spaces who don't feel welcome, especially don't feel welcome at church.
That
So then
makes
to
sense.
be like, all of our meetings are held in churches, those people aren't going to show up because
Mhm.
they automatically feel excluded. They automatically feel like they're being asked to go to a place that is unsafe and uncomfortable for them. And that's not fair. And
Mhm.
so I would love to see all, I guess if it's like a public group that opens their admissions or their membership to everyone, then it needs to be outside of a church. It cannot be in a church. Like I don't want to keep seeing that. And again, this is just my view, my hopeful like wish of wishes kind of future is just like removing, because I think that is just, yeah, removing the religious aspect from so much of what happens in the quilting world. Because not that there shouldn't be room for every kind of quilter, but to like make that the default is like so detrimental to the quilting world as a whole because we're missing out on so many good people that we don't know are out there because they're too scared or they're feel marginalized even further by the practices that are in play. And so, and also like I love fabric. I freaking love fabric. And I have loved fabric since I was a little tiny tot. Loved fabric. But also my conscience is like, overconsumption is super, super bad. And we should stop creating so much extra
Yeah.
textiles that just get wasted. And so I feel super torn on that. And I don't even know what a solution would be for that. But anyway, we can start with not having guilds in churches.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so interesting. I like my faith, I'm Christian, is like paramount, but to me, but also I very, very, very much ascribe to the whole like teaching of love one another.
Hmm.
I loved you. And to me, that means like literally everyone all the time, just like
Yeah.
just love, just love everyone. And so I agree with you, even though it hurts my heart. Like if the loving thing is to have those things be outside of a church. And that is the most, what I would consider like Christ-like way to love somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Then I want to love unconditionally. And if that means loving in a different building, because that's more loving, I want
Mm-hmm.
to, and so I thank you. I had not considered that, because I do feel welcomed in those places.
Right.
Um, that it's not something I had considered or known, because I'm like, oh, I feel safe here. And I hadn't taken the time to be like, oh, but does everyone?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Sure.
For sure,
Yeah.
because we know what we don't know.
Yeah. Right.
What we
And like I was raised Christian too. And so the church aspect isn't offensive to me,
right.
but also I've been burned by a lot of people in church,
Oh
and I
yeah.
know that that's not God. Like that's not my God. That's not my faith I should have been treated that way. That's humans, right?
That's why
So,
he went and flipped some tables, because he was like, "This is not correct." And
yeah.
so, yeah, yeah, I'm definitely like a little bit of a table flipper too, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"This is not correct." And
Yeah.
so, yes, I think probably same views on that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
And you're right. Like I'm with you on the love thing. It's like if we're truly meant to be loved and love unconditionally, then that means unconditionally. It means no conditions. It means just because a person looks different than you does not mean that you can withhold love from them. And if you're saying that, well, the loving thing is to keep them out, that's not true. That's not
no,
true. And like anyway, I could go on forever, but yeah, I just think
yeah,
opening spaces so that more people feel welcome. And I know it can't be that everywhere is welcome to everyone all the time, the way things are now. And I don't even know what it would take to get there, but I think like again, back to the guild thing, so like historically they've just been kind of opened and held in churches, and I think as cities, as municipalities, like there's a disservice being done if there aren't enough public free spaces or minimal charging spaces that can be used in that way.
yeah, yeah.
So, and my guild is large. Like we have a couple hundred members active, and yeah. And they're not there every meeting, but some people are gone all winter and they're just here for the summer months, and that's fine, but they're still in the guild. And it's like if we don't even have a space in a pretty, it's not a huge city, but it's the
Yeah,
largest
city,
city.
right.
It's a city and it's the largest city in our state, and it's growing by the
Mhm,
minute. Like
mhm.
if we don't have a space that can be a communal safe space for everybody, where any kind of like committee or guild or anything can be held, then like what are we doing? That's not like thousands of dollars to rent out for one evening a month.
Right. And
So
so,
yeah,
yeah,
anyway,
fascinating.
enough about me.
Enough about never. I want to know everything. I love people and their stories. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite thing about meeting people, the older I get, I'm like mid-30s now. And one of my favorite things is now that everyone else is older too, everyone has such stories,
Hmm.
you know, and opinions about things and reasons why they have opinions. And so I just love getting older and getting to be like new friends, because I'm like, tell me your 18 lifetimes you've already had. And so
Right.
it's just like, yeah, because I'm like, I know Amanda has opinions about that for some kind of a reason. I know there's at least 17 stories behind it. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the most magical things about the privilege of growing older. Just,
Hmm. Yeah. I'm honestly like, I turning 30 was rough. Like that was a hard one for me. And that was when I really dug into trying to grow and learn about myself. And that's when I started reading Brene Brown and, you know, have been in and out of therapy since. And
yay.
yeah.
So
And just like finding myself, because I feel like I was just so lost to someone else's idea of what I should have been for so long. And but yeah, the older I get and the more educated on myself, the more I know about myself, the easier it is for me to just let other people be and to not hold judgments and to not hold opinions, but just be interested. Like if I'm asking questions or if I'm like literally people watching, it's because I'm curious and I'm interested. Like there's no judgments there. It's like, what is your story? And the stories I come up with in my head are just like super fun because I love to people watch and pretend like I know what's going on in their life. It's a good time.
Thanks.
But
Ever come
but
to Maui? Great place to do that. Like,
yeah.
you're just like, how'd you get here?
Yeah, right? I've only
Yeah.
ever been to Kona, so Maui would be a fun trip. But
Yeah. Do
yeah,
it.
I know. And my husband, like, his mom and stepdad were stationed in Hawaii when he was like in fourth and fifth grade. And so he's like, I lived there. I'm like, you were a child. We can go visit. Like,
You're like, okay,
I
what
know.
does that have to do with
We,
anything?
I know. I think
Oh,
he
we
just
can't
like,
discuss now because we already
I
got
know.
that out. Like, what are you, what?
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
but
very funny. But we did go. I did because he, obviously lived at the base, but he was like, we did go to Kona on the Big Island, and I showed him some stuff that like I had done and seen when I was there with my family, and we just hung out and surfed and
it's
stayed.
magical.
Yeah, it's just ugh, beautiful. We love Hawaii and it's so great. And so we are gonna go to Spain again this summer. We're doing El Camino de Santiago.
I've done that.
Really?
I just did the Portuguese one, and then my
Okay.
dad done like 6 different ones. And so my fiance and my dad went on the Inglés as their get to know each other trip. Um,
Hmm.
and so, oh, you're gonna have the best time. It's fantastic.
I'm
It's
so excited.
fantastic.
We're doing the French way. So
Oh, okay,
we're
man.
gonna be there for
2 weeks. So what are you doing?
yeah, it's about 6 weeks. And then our oldest is gonna go with us, which is super fun.
So
Yeah.
the thing is, and I hope you find this to be true after your Camino, when we first did the Waynes, right? Because we had never done anything like that. And it'll get hard. And it'll
Hmm.
get hard to the point where you're like, I don't know why we're doing this. This is not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Um, this is a vacation.
Yeah.
What if we just sat in a pub? And so it does, it gets really, really hard. And but at the end of it, I think I have it on. I don't know if you can. Oh, you're over here. Not that one. This one. It says badass. Woo!
Oh,
And
cute.
I wore it my first long hike, Wayne's right. And every time I got super stressed, I would just touch it and be like, "You're a badass."
Yeah.
And so, after the hike, we all talked and we were like, "Man, I just feel capable of so much more because I shouldn't have been able to do that, especially not hiking before or anything."
Right.
Um, so it just like kind of forever gives you this sense of like, oh, I am a badass. Like
Hmm.
I did that. I
Hmm.
can handle whatever. And so
Yeah.
so I wear it most days. And definitely when I do scary things like go on podcasts, to like remind me that you
Yeah.
can do things. And so maybe you need a badass necklace before your trip.
Maybe
Just
I
as,
do.
just as a little reminder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, and I think too, like I've done hard things. This is just definitely would be like the most duration. Like I've run a half marathon and I never thought I'd be the person who goes to the gym and lifts weights. Like I never thought I would, have a podcast. I never thought I would, have rental properties. I never thought any of these things for myself or have a quilting business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. So, and thankfully, like a lot of, I don't want to give him all the credit because I had to be the one to decide to do it, but just having a supportive partner. Like my husband has always been my biggest cheerleader and always been supportive. And like, obviously, I'm not doing the Camino alone. We're going together, but it's something that like once we learned about it and the longer we were kind of in Barcelona, we both were like, yeah, we want to do the Camino so bad together. And he's the he's kind of like a not adrenaline junkie. I shouldn't say that because he doesn't do like he doesn't like ride motorcycles and do like super scary like cliff diving or anything. He just like does hard endurance stuff because he's like, that's the thing that helps me deal with my crazy brain and my traumatic experiences. And it's like just how I deal with my life. And so he's always pushing to do something hard.
Mhm.
And um, so I think that just really helps keep me motivated because I'm not with a person who isn't willing to also do these hard things too and wants me to want to do them as well. And if I don't, then it's fine. It's not like he's like, you have to do this or else.
Right. Right. My fiance is the same way. So yeah, if you ever need another couple to go on a hard trip. My only caveat for hard trips, I'm like fine with it, but
Hmm.
also at the end of it, I want to add on of being like a fancy slug. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, I will gladly hike Kilimanjaro. I'm super stoked about it. And then when we get down after not showering for like 13 days, I want
Yeah.
to go to a spa and then a safari. And so
Hmm.
always like, yeah, let's do the hard thing. Also,
Right.
want to be a fancy slug at some point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So,
I this year, so my mom owns Patchwork Plus, liquor store in Virginia,
yeah.
and she and I in April are actually leading a group of quilters to the Netherlands and going for the Tulip Festival. We're going to Bruges and to the Bobbin Lace University to like
Mm.
learn bobbin lace, and
Wow.
my dad's got some cool side quests for us. And then in July, we're leading quilters to Iceland, and we're gonna go see the puffins and do some handwork
Oh,
and do some machine work on one day. And so
yeah.
yeah, so getting to add quilting and travel has started
Hmm.
becoming a thing in my life, and I could not be more excited. Like meet
Yeah.
cultures that are like new friends and
Hmm.
travel. What?
Yeah. That sounds so fun. I did see those, the links to those trips in your link tree, and I was like, what the hell? This looks like a great time. Because
And
yeah,
so
like even in
2025, we're going, I don't know if it's been announced, but we're going to Bali. And we're going to be staying at artist commune, making batiks under batik masters.
my
Um,
gosh.
and there's a lot of other fun goodies that'll be in there that are kind
Ooh.
of super special. And so, yeah.
Fun. You know what's so funny? We were literally, my mom and I were, I think somebody came to get their quilt or something, and we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna be gone. And she was like, oh, where are you going? And we're like, oh, we're going to QuiltCon. She's like, oh, where's that at? And we're like, oh, in Raleigh. She goes, Bali? And I was like, I wish I would already be there.
2035, girl. Ayo. You're
I'm
like,
like,
yes,
ooh,
stay Bali. And so,
I
yeah,
need to
and it's
write this
really
down.
cool. So we have an artist commune to ourselves, and we've
Oh,
been before. And it's like in the two-story tree houses. So like underneath is like the outdoor dining room. And so,
yeah.
so
So fun.
excited. So
Yeah.
excited.
That's
So
so fun. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna look out for that because
yeah, I will. I'll like give you a little sexy text.
yeah.
But yes. So so
So
what are you
cool.
so excited about in quilty world right now?
Ooh. I am loving, I think I'm loving the most that people are pushing to like quilt with what you have,
Mm-hmm.
um, and show it more because I think just like back to what we were saying before, like it can be really hard to feel like your art is valuable in a world where everything seems perfect or seems to come from brand new fabric all the time, and which is great and beautiful, and if that's how you like to quilt, then do it to the maximum. But there's so many more makers out there that are quilting and making with found objects, or they're thrifting, or they're just using stuff around the house and showcasing it more. And I think that that is something I am loving seeing because as much as I love a fresh pile of brand new fabric, I also, again, feel that kind of pull of like, maybe I shouldn't buy more fabric than I'm going to use because I have so much already that it seems silly to keep buying fabric. So I love seeing that. And just like, I recently became one of the admins in the Seam Ripper Society Facebook group.
Oh my
Um,
God, I'm part of, I'm not part of it. I'm
Member.
follower.
Yeah, you're a member. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they
Wow.
yeah.
Mhm.
So they had put out kind of a request if anybody was interested, and I've kept in contact and, feel like I've maintained pretty good friendships with Erin and Emily, and I was like, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'm already online all the freaking time anyway because I manage all the social media for the show, for my quilting business. I'm already on it. So that's exciting to be a part of the Seam Ripper Society just because they form the group because a lot of times you join these like quilty groups on Facebook and you ask a question and it never gets answered, or people throw their 2 cents in, but it's not the answer to your question. And so
Mhm.
their whole goal in the group, not only to present challenges that like are fun and learning new skills or like helping people get resources to learn a new skill, but just that sense of community of like, yes, your question will be answered in this group. You will get the information you're looking for because we will make sure you do. And if, we see as admins, if we see a post that someone's posed a question, one of us will jump in there and answer it if we see that it hasn't been answered yet. So I think just that focus of like, okay, we need to like reimagine what this looks like and how do we make this more meaningful and practical for the people who are looking for quilt community. And that was like Emily and Aaron, they're like, we don't really have quilty friends where we're at. And so they're like, we have to build our community online. And just like what you're doing, it's like that same story of like, I don't have any in-person quilty friends, so I'm gonna find them in a different way. And so that's where that came from. And I'm just like so honored to be a part of that because I think with this show and with that and with what I'm doing in my business and being part of those guilds, like my goal only is ever to further the love of quilting and also be a safe space for anybody who wants to talk quilting and ask questions. And I don't know everything, but I know a lot of things and I'm always willing to talk quilts and learn. And so, yeah. What's your favorite thing that's going on right now?
Kind of on that same vein, I think that just in general, us growing up and everything, the generations before us are like my nana, like they just collect, like she had like a collection of belts,
Yeah.
collections of things.
Mhm.
I think post World War II, that was just kind of I don't know, what
Mhm.
you did or how you showed financial stability, or like I don't know what exactly it was based in, but there was definitely some kind of post World War II base of the collecting of objects.
Right.
And that has been passed down through generations. And this is part of what success looks like. And even now, what we've been talking about is people with huge, gorgeous quilt rooms. Good on you, by the way. Like, I'm not trying to shit talk you at
Right.
all. I
Right.
think if that is a creative space for you, girl, by all means. I can just speak for me. And for me, when I have a ton, I am less creative than ever because I
Mhm.
get overwhelmed. And so, I think that we equated multitude with success
Mhm.
or value
Right.
or knowledge. Like if I have a lot of this, then I'm good. And other
Mhm.
people can see that I'm good. Um,
Mhm.
and so I really like that it's, what if we used our stash? What if,
Mhm.
and then what if, like, I've been doing the strawberries, love them, but I realized I actually don't have very many green fabrics. So I use like all my green fabrics like that. And then I didn't have
Really?
any. And so then I just posted in my story, like, hey, does anyone have green fabrics from Ruby Star or like OG Cotton and Steel or Heather Ross? Like,
Mhm.
I need 3 by 3s and 2.5 by 2.5s, if you have any. And um people did and were willing to share. And so
Mhm.
then I also then didn't have to go buy a ton. Because even a fat quarter, like I didn't want like a fat quarter of like however many 3 by 3s of one fat quarter. I wanted a variety. So to get a variety, I'd have to purchase a variety. And then
Right.
to have 3 inch square from, it's just, it didn't make sense. The math wasn't mathing.
Yeah.
And so the fact that others are willing to be like, yeah, I can send you some 3x3s, easy. And I feel like there's more and more online bees through Instagram. I don't know about TikTok. I'm sure there is. I'm not really there yet. But, there's more and more online bees of like, this is what the block of the person wants, and these are the colors or designers or whatever. Use your stash.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And I love that it's not only now, for lack of a better term, like acceptable to be actually using our stash, but it's encouraged. Or like the
Mm-hmm.
good fabric. Let's buy fabric and put it on a shelf, never use it. And I'm 1000% guilty. I have fabric I have never touched that is
Yeah.
15 plus years old.
Yeah.
And then when I worked in quilt stores, what we would see a lot is when a quilter passes away, their
Mm-hmm.
loved ones are then like, I don't know what to do with this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, or it gets donated to different organizations or ministries or anything. And then it's hard to match, to like color match anything, because those colors are now so old that they kind of don't exist on the current market. And
Right.
so unless they had like a whole bunch of fabric to go together, like it's hard to, I am a matchy person by
Mm.
trade, so it's hard to like color match things.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I don't want to have, or in the earlier 2000s, pink and brown was a really big color play. I
Oh
bought
yeah.
pink and brown fabric for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I would currently not put together pink and brown fabric. Will I in 5 more years? Maybe, probably. Maybe I'll be on the podcast again. We'll be touting how great pink and brown is. But like,
Right.
I haven't used that fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And why am I going to give it room in my house? And so I love that moving out here, we live in 500 square feet. So basically you can see like a third of my house right now.
Yeah.
And so like by not having space, it really made me realize, and when you move to Europe, it'll be the same thing. You'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you don't need much to have a gloriously full life.
Yeah.
And the less I have, the more I have to have a community and create a community because I need their help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that as a byproduct of, and because I have so little in comparison to what I used to have,
Mm-hmm.
um, I am very excited to work with what I have because I can see it.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's my most exciting thing right now is how it's not just accepted, it's encouraged now to actually use or to
Mm-hmm.
finish projects.
Yeah. Finish that
Because
damn quilt.
like, be cool, like get 2/3 of the way there and just quit forever. Like, why did we think that was cool? Like, what if we finished those things
I
or
know.
donated them to someone who else? Because quilting's expensive, man.
Mm-hmm.
Quilting, so like that's why I think we're seeing the rise in thrift and the rise in using your stash, also economics.
Mm-hmm.
And so if
Yeah.
there's something in your stash that you don't love, there's somebody who's retired and on a fixed income. There's someone who's young and getting started. There's someone who's a mom with littles where money's tight. There's somebody else who will love that fabric
Mm-hmm.
that will be a gift to. And I'm not going to hold on to one day when today somebody would be like, oh, I can
Yeah.
quilt because somebody else donated this.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
give
Yeah. Well, it's been so funny. Like, I mean, obviously for the business, we have, just kind of fabrics on hand. So if when people are asking for custom quilts, we can be like, oh, we've got this fabric that matches, whatever. And like, we were kind of buying a lot of like, oh, we'll just keep this on hand. But we haven't ended up using a lot of it. Um, and so my mom and I both were like, we need to stop doing that. Like, we're just spending money to spend money to have fabric that we're not using. Like, it's such a waste. And she and I both have it, like, she more than me, but we both have a lot of fabric. And so she's honestly been donating stuff that she's had forever to projects for the business. And like, she's like, I don't even care, just use it, whatever. And, but so my little sister's been living at home since the summer. She just like moved back in with my parents for a little bit. Now she's getting ready to move back to California to live with her boyfriend. I'm very sad, but she was like, yeah, I want to make a quilt. And so of course the first thing she picked was like cutting out hearts by hand and then appliquing them or like doing them like blanket stitching them down onto squares. And she was like, that took forever. And then I was like, okay. And then she's like, well, I'm ready to make my second one now. I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm like, here's this layer cake that I've had for 1,012 years. And it's all the colors she loves. And it's like these little birds and there's eggs and it's like teals and blues and like these rusty orange browns, like so cute. And then, I was like, I'm going to teach you how to make this X's and O's pattern. And I was like, and you're going to do this quilt top in one day. And you're going to stand back when it's hanging on the quilt wall. And you're going to be like, holy shit, I just made another quilt because it's going to go 1,000 times faster than your hearts. So I showed her how to snowball the corners and lay it out. And she did it all. And she literally did. She like laid everything out, put it up on the design wall. And she stood back and she went, oh, I was like, yes, but I
Like,
felt so cool.
yeah, this is why the fabric exists, for this moment, not to sit on the shelf, but for this.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
like even the background, the fabric she used for snowballing the corners was stuff that I had bought for this project I was going to do last year in 2022 actually. And I just never it just never came to fruition. And then also the thing like the panel, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to make this use this for the border and the backing of this panel." Well, it's one of those panels that's literally the size of a throw quilt. It's not just like a normal panel. So I was like, just kidding. And that fabric ended up being perfect for her quilt. And so it became the background and it became the binding. And now I only have half a yard left and it can be perfect for like because again, like my mom is like such a crafty person. Like, I don't even know. She
Mhm.
just will make anything out of scraps. And I think that's like where I'm starting to get more okay with it and learn more. Cause I used to panic about being like, I'm not going to have enough fabric to make this pattern if I just use scraps. And so I would think I just had this like, yeah, this feeling that I had to buy all new fabric for every pattern I ever made. I'm like get kind of coming out of that, which is great. But anyway, so we saved all the corners that my sister cut off and I'm like, here this is. This is a project that's like ready to be made. Here's this fabric that matches, here's the leftovers and here's all the little triangles and I know my mom will make something out of it and like it'll be so cute. But it's just stuff like that where it's like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot I had this fabric." Or like
Right.
but also finding ways to use it that isn't necessarily just for me either because like you were saying it takes friends, it takes community and if you're trying to quilt with what you have and not purchase a bunch of new stuff like it is so nice to have a big range of quilty people you can reach out to because they might just have the thing you're looking for and maybe they just want you to pay the postage on it or maybe not
Right.
even that. Maybe sometimes they're just willing to send it to you because they just love you so much. And I've mailed fabric to people like they're like, "Oh, I'm looking for, OG Ruby Star, OG Cotton and Steel, and I want to put it in this stuff." It was one of those like,
Much. Does
yeah,
anyone have it? And you're like,
yeah,
actually, let me help you
yeah,
out.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I do have some of that. Here you go. It's like a tiny square. And yeah, it doesn't make a dent in my stash, but it made me feel good that I could help somebody have the thing that they're looking for. And so anyway,
Magic moment for that person too,
yeah.
right? So they're like, oh, I recently, a quilty friend sent me some of the OG like pink and oranges Mustangs from Sarah Watt.
Yes.
And that's exactly the face I made. She's like, I've done everything I want to do with it. And so I'll just throw it in for you. And I was like, kidding me? And so, like, if I can bring that kind of like, whoa, to someone, how, how dare I not? You know?
Right.
I'm a big fan of buying kits or pre-cuts because I like that. I want the variety. I want the new fabric. And I think
Hmm.
the thing too is sometimes people are like, oh, you like scrappy, you must hate new fabric. I'm like, girl, where do you think these scraps came from?
Yeah.
But like, no, I'm a big fan of fabric. I'm just not a big fan of like, and I used to do this. If you find something you like, just buy 3 yards.
Hmm.
3 yards?
Bam. That is a
Like
lot of
3 yards
fabric.
of every fabric I like. Are you kidding me? Like I renovated, so I have a rental property too. It's
Mm.
my great granddaddy built it. And then my nana grew up there, my mama grew up there, I lived there, and then I made it into an Airbnb when I moved out here. But I renovated it, paid all my renovation fees from selling quilts or destashing. That's how
Oh,
much fabric I had. I paid for a brand new kitchen, a brand new bathroom. I closed a wall. I put on a porch. I insulated. I did all of that from destashing and quilt sales. And honestly, if we're being honest, I bet you a good 60% of the people we know from quilt world could do the same.
yeah.
And so another thing, if money is tight, and again, economics right now are kind of like iffy dippy, especially if you have a single income
Mm-hmm.
stream, even if there's two people working, if it's still single income for both of you, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, out here, if you buy 3 peppers, it's $10. So like,
Yeah.
like pricey boys.
Yeah.
And you have fabric that's not singing to your heart, girl, keep the stuff that sings to your heart. But if
Mm-hmm.
you have stuff that's not singing to your heart, destash it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can make money and make someone's day and give your own self peace of mind and clarity and creativity by destashing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing. I not buy people's destash. I bought from 2 destashes last week because here's the thing. I would rather support someone's destash than me try to figure out where to find stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, personally, I'm like, hey, I'll help you out for sure.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm gonna get barred from every quilt store that exists for this podcast.
No.
You're gonna be like, she just said to never quilt. That's not what I said.
No.
Go to every quilt store I can.
Yeah. I know. Me too. I'm like, is there a quilt store? I literally was like on vacation in Barcelona, like, I wonder if there's quilt shops around. And then I found someone who would be on the podcast. So, I mean, come on.
I love that. No, love quilt shops, love
Yeah.
deep stashes, love using your stash. It is an all of the above for me.
Right. Yeah. It's like do all of it.
Do all of it.
And because it's like, yeah, sometimes you're going to just need something and sometimes you can find it from a D stash. Sometimes somebody's willing to sell it to you and sometimes you just have to go buy it and that's okay. Like, and if you have to buy it, try to support your local quilt shop or someone that
Yeah.
you know that has an online shop. Like, if you can't shop local, then support your friends because owning a small business is hard AF. The more we
Yeah.
can support each other, the better. And I think overall, like, there's no right or wrong way to make what you want to make. And the quilt police can fuck right off because it's not anybody's job. It's not anybody's like,
I
it's like,
feel like quilt police are like going away. I do feel like there's
mhm.
less and less of them. Or again, maybe I'm just so not quilt policey that I just don't attract quilt police because they're like, well, she's beyond hope. Um, think that like it's becoming less of a thing.
Yeah. Well, I think so many people are standing up to people that like try to call them out or try to say negative things. It's like, why do you gotta like yuck my yum? Get out of here. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have time for you.
No. Well, no. Well, also like what? Why do you want to rain on someone's parade? Like, is that fun
Right.
for you? Are you having a good day now that you're being mean to someone?
Right.
That sounds like something you should talk to with your therapist. If like that's something that
Yeah.
brings you joy. Like,
Right. Right. No, and that's exactly it. It just says more about that person than the person they're trying to police. And just I think the more maybe before it used to be like more of a mystery, like I don't know how this Instagram thing works and it just shows me whatever and it's morphed and changed, which is great and not so great in some ways, but whatever. But I think more and more people are realizing that they have a lot more control over what they see and what they don't.
yeah, and who
And
you
you can curate your existence online. And I think people who don't think that they can just don't understand it enough to know, like, actually, you can really, you can really get yourself like in a tiny little box if you want to, if you know what to do, or if you know how to like teach the algorithm what to show you.
Mhm.
And so if you're interacting with negative stuff and if you're liking things that have a lot of negative interaction, or if you keep clicking on negative things, it's going to keep showing you that stuff. Like, oh, well, I need to see what this person said. No, you don't, Brenda. Don't click on it. Like, it'll just keep showing you more, you
Right.
know?
Right. And so, yeah, no. And you know what? Here's the thing. In all of human history, there's always going to be drama. There's going
Mhm.
to be drama about quilts. I work in a bookstore. There's drama about books. There's always just going to be drama, but that doesn't mean that you need to be part of it.
Right.
And so you can let it exist and be like, I love watching Real Housewives. I don't
Mhm.
want to live a Real Housewife lifestyle, but like, girl, throw it on a screen, do some sewing, I'm in. But I try very much to keep all my drama on a screen that I can pause them and walk away. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
I get upset about quilts.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I'm sure I'll eat my words at some point, but like, and my mom used to say that when people would like miscut something at the store or whatever, and she'd be like, and they'd be worried. And she's like, we work with fabric. You're fine. This is
Mm.
not a big deal. My background's actually in neuroscience and biochemistry. And so like when things would mess up, it was like a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
Like people like quilt drama. I'm like, did anyone die? And they're like, nope. I'm like, you good?
Everything's
You,
fine then.
yeah, yeah, you're fine. And
You're
so
like, nobody's brain got scrambled. We're good.
yeah, everyone, we're fabric? No, sorry, I can't. Half my island burned down. I can't be mad about fabric. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, your
So,
island.
yes. So
Mhm.
actually, okay. So fires absolutely terrible. For those of you that don't remember, in August, Maui wildfires burnt down Lahaina and Pula,
Yeah.
and just kind of all over the island. Kihei got some burn.
Hmm.
But that is actually what first started me on social and quilt world, because as soon as it happened and we realized the depths of the destruction and that people lost just everything,
Yeah.
uh, the first things that popped in my mind was like, they're gonna need quilts.
Yeah.
Like people are gonna need quilts. And
Hmm.
so I did a post of like, hey, I'm in Maui. This is what's happening, and I need the quilt community to show up for the people of Maui.
Yeah.
Um, as they lost everything. And I know you have some quilts hanging out at home, and we don't, and they need
Yeah.
them. And so I
Yeah.
did about that and about the volunteer efforts we were doing and everything.
Hmm.
And so quilters started sending hundreds, and then it became thousands of quilts to the house. And that was like another reminder of like, I need quilters in my life, because quilters don't hesitate to help
No.
in any way they can. As quilters, they sent money, they sent gift cards, they sent items. I had like a Target list and an Amazon list, and like
Hmm.
people just were so. By people, I mean quilters just had such a heart and such an outpouring. And like I said, thousands of quilts arrived, that I was like, this is the group of humans I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
And um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I will spend the rest of my life with quilters for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a space I want to, and I think that's why I want to see it change because like I know it has already changed so much and opened up so much, but it's because even in the spaces where maybe people don't feel super welcome, there's always a handful in those groups that will drop everything to help you. They're like angels and they are open and welcoming. And so it's like just seeing more of that because yeah, the quilters are some of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. And
Great.
our guild pulled together a bunch of quilts to send to Maui and that was like lovely with the California fires like the
Mhm.
last few years like again same efforts like and not just like oh here's a little throw size quilt like no we're sending like queen size quilts to make sure people had bedding and also kid quilts baby quilts to make sure that the children had things and yeah it's just like one of those things nobody hesitated we were all just like yep anything we have we'll send it and
Yeah.
just
And
that
I think that is normal for quilters to stop their busy lives and
yeah
say, "How can I help you?"
yep
And with knowledge, with quilts, with a listening ear, I think 96% of quilters are just givers by heart. And I've always called quilts tangible love. It's just love you can feel. That's
yep
all it is. And we make so many because our hearts have so much love that we
it
have to
doesn't
keep
fit
making quilts because we have so many quilts.
yeah
And so
yeah
yeah, I think quilters are truly the best humans alive for sure.
yeah yep for sure it's gosh and yeah like my heart broke as I just sat there and watched everything burn. It's like, what do you I'll send a quilt. Like I can't do anything else, but I can do that, you know, or like I can send money or it's it's devastating, but I think the rallying to pull together anything that people needed was really beautiful to see. And, you know, hopefully I haven't looked into how the recovery is going or, you know,
Don't
how things
think
are
that
going.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
It's just real sad. You should
Yeah.
not get anything. I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah. That's what I figured. But and I think too, like that help, but also acknowledging that like also don't be a tourist at this time, or maybe that helps, but like I don't know. It's hard because I think
It hugely helps. Like, so if anyone's listening to this and like, should I go to Maui? Please, for the love of God, come to Maui
mm,
and spend your money and get a massage and go to restaurants and tip well. Because a lot of people who weren't directly affected by the fire, maybe they weren't living on the west side. But when the like for a while, like no one was coming, which would have been great for like 2 weeks to 10 days, but it went on for months, which
mhm,
again, from what I've heard, like the media coverage on the mainland was very confusing of like, should we go? Should we not? Like, I don't want to be a bad person. So I'm going to stay away. And unintentionally, that put us into a more financial depression here on the island. And so yeah, we definitely still want people to come to Maui, but don't go to the west side. Just like don't go gawk at people's loss.
yeah,
That is so much bigger than just Lahaina. And so yeah, don't, and that's just true anywhere. Like just like
right,
don't gawk at anyone's loss.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and you're right. It was confusing because it's like there was so many mixed messages, like some kind of maybe more well-known celebrities who are islanders are like, don't come here, you're not welcome, like leave us alone at this time. But then there's like other people being like, no, definitely come, like tourism is our biggest moneymaker. And then still on the same hand being like, but also don't come here. But I think what you're saying, maybe it was to the point of like, don't come where we're devastated, go to the other parts of the island, support those businesses, support those people, because then that will in turn help the entire island. And so I can,
Hard. You want to do right, but
yeah,
it's hard to be like, there's a lot of information out there.
yeah. And you don't want to be disrespectful. And I think that's like when you have these like respected celebrities saying, don't come here, you're like, okay, I won't. I don't want to disrespect anybody. Like this is your ancestral home. Like, I don't want to fuck with juju. Like, I don't know. And so like I could see that being confusing. But yeah, but what you're saying makes total sense. Like just don't go and gawk at the devastation. Go
No,
to the places where you can where your tourist dollars can be beneficial.
yeah. Well, nobody wants you to like, I don't want you to go look at my darkest day and
No.
just stand there and look at it.
No.
So it's just the same. Just don't go to someone's darkest day as
Mhm.
part of your trip,
Right.
you know?
But yeah, and it's just that like that mm, I don't know if I have like coherent way
No,
to say this,
on all of it. It's fine.
but the like that kind of like people standing around gawking or like someone like coming to like, well, I need to go see this person and while they're ill, and then they just stand there like, I just feel so sorry. And it's like to make themselves feel better. Like, well, I went and I felt so bad for those people. It's like, okay, like how did you help? Well, I didn't. Okay, great. Get out of here. You know, it's like so yeah, it's like if it's self-serving so that you can feel like you showed pity, like don't
You got
do it.
there. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that was the problem. People were like, I got a picture in Lahaina, like burnt down. I'm like, oh, do you?
Why?
Go
Yeah.
for it.
Do you hear yourself?
I didn't, and I live here. Like, I will
Yeah.
never do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
filters are amazing. That's
Yeah.
that's more of that story.
Full oval back to
Filters are
quilters
fun.
are
Yeah, yeah,
amazing, generous, giving people. And I think that's why this community is so strong. And I think that's why we can and do see changes happening that are for the benefit of everyone who wants to be in the quilt community and, find like-minded quilters and find groups of people that lift them up and don't make them feel stupid for making silly mistakes. And it's like, I think on one of
Oh,
your reels, like you were joking about like, I've been quilting for, my whole life and I still make this kind of silly mistake all the time. And I'm like that all the time, it's we're working with machines, but we're still human and there's always room for error and it's okay. And like uh, on a recent episode, I was talking to Anne Scahill of Crafty Moose Quilts, and we were talking about like I say that's good enough, and she always says sufficient, like that's sufficient. And we always like joke back and forth, like we even still keep texting each other, like, oh my gosh, I was just sitting here thinking, like, okay, that's good enough. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Anne, and she's like, oh, that's so funny because I was just thinking this is sufficient. Like Amanda would be so proud. Like it's just one of those things where you you have the skills. If you mess up, it doesn't mean you're bad. And if you find a group of people who also have the same perspective on quilting as you do and can lift you up, then like that's all a girl can ask for.
yeah. Also, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah,
And remember, if anyone else is like, if they have perfect everything, they're probably a serial killer.
probably.
So
Let's
let's
be
be
honest.
honest. Like, they're probably a serial killer. I've watched a lot of Dateline. I know. It's just, no, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I have really enjoyed getting to know you.
Oh my
And
name. Do you want to be friends for real?
I mean, obviously, yes, of course. So I know. And I just am so grateful for the content that you're putting out there and making quilting just feel more real and more relatable and being an authentic voice in sometimes what seems like a sea of perfection. And I again back to what we were saying, like you are perfect exactly how you are, exactly how you were made. That's exactly how you were supposed to be. And so when brave, because it feels brave, right? It feels courageous to show up in your authentic skin and be who you are. It just encourages more of it. And so I really am grateful to you for being one of those voices out there doing that and making a safe place for people to just be themselves.
Yes. Again, I only want to be friends with people who are fully themselves. And it's fun getting questions. Like I'll get DMs and like, hi, I'm so sorry. I'm a beginner. So if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I love beginners. Do you know what beginners mean? Beginners mean that somebody else is about to embark on this magical journey that the rest of us are a little further down the path. Like,
Yeah.
I love beginners. And
Me
so,
too.
yeah, I think it's magical. I think what you're doing of like also through this podcast of like making us all human and not just on, on Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh wait, an actual person is doing this,
Mhm.
who actually wants to be your friend and who actually has a life outside of quilting and actually is like, oh, is anyone gonna like this? Do I have friends out there that I don't know about? And so I thank you for what you're doing for the
Mm,
world. And
thank
I
you.
am a zillion% envious of your future QuiltCon adventure. But
Uh, yeah.
next year we'll do it together.
Yeah. It'll be so fun. Yes, we will be there together in 2025 and it's
Yes,
going to be a great adventure. And I honestly am going to be looking out for that Bali trip because I might need
2025
a
quilty trip year.
yeah. Well, if anybody's listening and they don't know where to find you on the Instagram, what is your Instagram handle?
Oh, my Instagram is quilt with Miss Kate. And yep, I just checked. I always wonder if there's an S or not. And I have to
Oh,
look it up like all the time. I'm
yeah.
like, I don't know what it is. So yeah, it's quilt with Miss Kate
Okay.
because my real one, my other one is life with Miss Kate, and then I had one for books, and that was read with Miss Kate. And so,
Oh, I like it. I like it.
oh yeah. So yes, if you want to find me, it is on Instagram primarily, quilt at with Miss Kate. I will try to be a TikTok girly one day. I swear, it's just not today.
It's hard. I am not a TikTok girly either. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Am I too old? I don't know.
I
It's fine.
know. But I also thought that about Instagram. I was like, everyone who's gonna be like anyone on Quilty Instagram already does it and is good at it and doesn't have anything to learn. And I was like, there's no space for me. And then I moved to a rock in the middle of the ocean. And I was like, well, it has to be because I need friends.
Or like, move over, I'm coming in.
I have to. I'm so sorry. Goddesses, aside, the swamp monster is coming through. So
Oh yeah, and you have your new swamp monster mug, so people
I
can
do
go check that out too.
happen. Yeah, it's just for anyone who doesn't get dressed up before they quilt. We should be buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. Leggings and t-shirts always. Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Right.
Bye.